Good morning, sailors. Let's take a look at today's agenda. Today, we're going to take a look at metaphorical me, making sure that it's all done, that you've followed the requirements, and that you've turned it in. We're going to just do a quick reflection. You're going to answer a Google question today on the 6 traits of writing, kind of what have you learned so far? And then we're going to start to score and critique some different student writing samples as we get ready to do our big culminating essay called Taking a Risk. All right, let's take a look at metaphorical me. Now, some of you already have this done, and maybe some of you need to just double check yours. So, metaphorical me. You had to write yours using the 4 sentence structures that we have been practicing. So, take a look. This is my example. Your very first line right here has to start with a participial phrase. You should have underlined that participial phrase. Make sure you have that comma here. So, throwing a toy mouse across the room, comma, I am a foster for kittens, and I truly am. I currently have 7 kittens in my kitten room. The next line had to be an adverb opener. So looking for those adverbs that end in ly. So this is me, carefully casting a line from shore. I am a fisherman. I love to go fishing. Their third line had to start with 2 adjectives. So this one's for me, humorous and clever, comma, I am a prankster. I absolutely love to do different pranks. We have these little toy skeletons that we hide on each other around our house and in our classroom. So the last one, in a positive, I started my sentence with a positive. A storyteller, comma, I am sharing my crazy life experiences with those around me. I'm always telling people about some of the crazy things that are going on in my world. So you should have your metaphorical me done. Every single line needs to have a comma. Make sure it starts with a capital, it ends with a period, and that you click on turn in or submit so that way your teacher knows it's done and we can get grading those. All right, if you don't have it done, get it done today. All right, your next thing that you're going to do is inside Google Classroom, you have this question. Please answer this question. In your opinion, what are the 2 most useful things that you have learned so far that will help you with your writing? Explain. So maybe you're going to say, what helps me with my writing has been word choice, putting more fireballs in there. Or maybe you're going to say, what helps me with my writing has been to show, not tell. Or maybe you're going to say it's starting it with different sentence structures, starting with a participial phrase. So take a look. Maybe it's adding in more powerful action verbs. Take a minute and write a response to the Google question and submit for your teacher. All right, welcome back. So what I want you to do now is you should be inside Google Classroom and open up underneath the in classwork, it'll say taking a risk. Today we're going to practice looking at some other student assignments and really scoring them and seeing what grade would these essays really truly get. So open up the document called Scoring Essays. I'll give you a second to do that. Pause the video if you need to. All right, you're looking at this document right here called Scoring Essays. So it says, today you're going to be the evaluator and the judge. Essays are scored on a scale of 1 to 6, 1 being the lowest and 6 being the highest. Students need to score at least a 3 in order to pass. All of these samples down here have been written by 7th graders on the topic of taking a risk. We want you to evaluate each essay for development of ideas and the details, for organization and strong word choice, for voice and feeling, for sentence fluency, and for those conventions, the spelling and the punctuation. So what we're going to be doing is looking at each one of these essays, and then I want you to give it a score. All right? So I'm going to go through this with you. So let's take a look at essay number 1. My brother is one of the most risky people that I've ever known. Before we moved to our new house, he used to always ride his bike around the subdivision. One day, he began to get bored of doing that same thing, so he decided to make a ramp to jump his bike off of. It took him a good 2 days to make one, but when it was finished, he was the first to test it. He went off the ramp and he had a really good landing, but then he let me try and laid down in front of the landing spot. He said to jump over him, but I said no and to move. Reluctantly, he moved. I had landed right where he had been laying. At my new house, his rollerblades instead of riding his bike. After a little while, he was getting sick of that, but he had an idea. He decided to take my energetic dog with him. My dog runs fast, and if she sees another animal or person, she darts off. The same day he thought of the idea was the same day he carried out the idea. I didn't even expect what happened next. The moment my brother had stepped outside was the moment my dog saw a little black squirrel. She was pulling him along the sidewalk while he was on his rollerblades. When he finally came home about 10 minutes later, he had a huge scrape on his knee, and I automatically knew what happened. Another thing that happened was my brother decided to place a bet with my sister's fiance. It was over a race car video game. Whoever lost had to have their head shaved by the other person. And what do you know? He lost. I told him not to do it, but he said he had to do it because he lost. All right, so your job right here is to give some strengths. What does this writer do well? What are some things that this writer has done well? Here, give some areas, some suggestions. What do they need to improve on? And then finally, give them a score of 1 to 6. 1 is the worst you can get. 6 is the best you can get. When you're looking at evaluating them, use things like ideas. They don't show versus tell. Or organization. It's very organized, goes from beginning to end. Strong word choice. It has lots of figurative language. Sentence fluency. The sentences start and vary in length. And conventions, that it's punctuated and it's spelled correctly. So right now, just take a minute and evaluate this writer. All right, so some strengths that I would give this writer if I were to look at him is that he did stay on the topic of a risk. So he stayed on topic for this risk and talking about all different risks. He did have some ideas, and he did show some of them. And then he also, his word choice was all right. But some areas he needs to improve on. I feel like he needs to work on his sentence fluency. And I do believe he still, even though he has some ideas, he could show more, you know what I mean, instead of the show versus tell. And so looking at this essay actually got a score of a 4. So that's kind of like a B right there. So it's not quite to the A range. It's, it's not as horrible as it could be. All right, let's take a look at what you got down here. Let's look at essay number 2. So essay number 2, again, they had to write all about taking a risk. That was the topic. So I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes. I want you just to pause, read this, and see what you think. What would you give this writer? If you'd like to hear it read aloud, I'll read it aloud. If you want to just skip through me reading it aloud, that's fine too. Last year, I had this really great idea of how to rearrange my room. So one day, while I was home by myself, I decided to go through with my idea. I moved all of my dressers around and moved my bed into a million different places. My idea didn't work, so I just moved things around again and again, hoping to find something that I liked. As I was moving my last dresser into place, I ran into it, breaking 2 of my toes. When my mom got home that night, she said that my room looked cool. She took me to the hospital a few minutes later. Even though you have good ideas, it's always good to share them with someone else. They can give you a second opinion, give you their ideas, and in my case, stop me from breaking my toes. All right, score it. All right, so some strengths that maybe you came up with for this writer right here. Some strength, again, they talked about taking the risk by moving the furniture around. So they kept on topic with risk. It was organized. It went from beginning to end. Some areas of improvement. There's not a whole lot of showing details. They broke their toes. What did it sound like? Where was the crunch of breaking my toes or the tears streaming down my face from the pain? So right here, there's not a whole lot of development with the ideas. We need more with the ideas. And they do have a variance in their sentences, in the structures, but I still think their fluency needs some work. Oh my goodness. So they definitely, the ideas, the fluency, I feel like we could hear some more voice. We need some figurative language in here, some dialogue, some inner thought. And so finally, the score, 1 to 6. What did you give it? What was the score you gave it? Well, the score it actually came in with was a 2. So this one's kind of like right around the D range. So it's not a very, very strong essay. They need to add in a lot more to make it even better. All right, let's take a quick sneak peek at essay number 3. So essay number 3 is quite humorous in my opinion. It's all about insurance fraud. And insurance fraud is when you break something to collect the insurance money on it. And so that's illegal. You can't do that. If it breaks on an accident, then you can, put in your claim, but you can't break it on purpose and then try and get the money. So this is what this one is. Essay number 3. What are you going to give this bad boy? My dog committed insurance fraud. I guess the plan was to blow up his house. Well, when he did a piece of shingle that was on fire landed in my front yard. Oh, yeah, it was already in my front yard. Well, after about 4 years, they caught up to him, and he was in prison for 7 years, and then they gave him the chair. So, right now, give it some strengths, give it some areas for improvement, and then score it 1 to 6. And then meet me back and let's see how you did. All right, some strengths. I'm going to tell you, I find it to be kind of funny. He makes a dog have commit insurance fraud by blowing up his dog house. But then it's kind of sad because he goes to prison and the dog gets the chair. Unfortunately, this has a lot of issues with its conventions. And that means its spelling and its word choice. It needs more fireball words in here. It needs some more figurative language, so it needs some voice. Even though it's humorous, it has a little funny tone to it, it needs more voice. And for sure, the big thing that this needs is the showing versus telling. This piece could be well developed on what the house looks like, what the dog's like, what led him to want to commit insurance fraud when the police showed up. And so all those things could be put into there. So what score did you get it? Yeah, if you gave it a 1, it did get a 1. So that's where we end. So taking a look, all these writers are writing about taking a risk. You're going to be doing that here starting tomorrow. So start thinking about times that you took a risk, and because you're going to need to generate some. And I know I can think of lots of times that I've taken risks. All right, guys, we'll see you back tomorrow. That's all I have for you today, just 1 through 3.